we just want to be excited, and I'm happy to be back in the business of excitement business.
Welcome to episode 49 of the Hipsters United podcast. My name is Chris, and joining me for this second podcast of the week are Jason.
Hello.
Jill.
I'm so excited!
And Andrew.
Hello.
Earlier this week we talked about everything from here to there.com, but now let's talk about the main event. Last week, Billy Corgan made the long-awaited official announcement about his album release plans. Many, many months ago, word began to get out that there would be no more albums, which to some meant the Smashing Pumpkins were finished again, while to others it meant that Billy's music would be released in a new way. Well, now we know what that new way is. There is an album. Its name is Teargarden by Kaleidyscope. It will consist of probably about 44 songs, but as was previously rumored, the songs will be released one at a time, and they will all be released for free. And not just free for a limited time or for those who provide some piece of personal information, free for everyone forever with no strings attached. Before we dive into details, Andrew, what were your initial thoughts or concerns about the overall approach?
Well, I think it's a interesting. I think it's a reasonably good way to go about it.
Come on, your initial reaction was free music, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
The reaction was Kaleidyscope.
Kaleidyscope. We've had a number of podcasts about why the last album wasn't successful, why everyone's in love with Radiohead because of how they released their last album and everything else.
Because their music is amazing.
And now Billy is kind of come up with a new twist on the free album type. I'm not quite sure if anybody's ever done it this way or not. I think it seemed pretty unique to me, the whole releasing a few songs at a time and then making release a few songs at a time and then making a EP-like release available for those who want to pay for it. And then down the road, after you've 11 or so cycles of releasing little bits, you have the whole box set release. So in giant collector form, it won't just be, according to Billy, it'll be a fresh packaging. It won't just be collecting everything that's already been released. So, there's added value to buying all the pieces and then buying all the big box set when it comes down, if you're willing to part with your hard-earned money. But if you don't want to do that, you just download the songs and, there's no, like you said, there's no strings attached. There's no having to submit your email address to future business and marketing opportunities. So it's sort of a tip the hat to Billy for his originality in sort of developing the release strategy. And then, of course, the title brought me back to when I think I first had the same similar sort of thought when I heard Mellon Collie and the Infinite Sadness for the first time. Sort of.
Oh, here we go.
You roll your eyes at Billy's sort of sense of humor, making play on words and big words, kind of a little jokey title like Mellon Collie was. So
I thought he just lost his mind. I mean, clearly from the outside, that's what's going on. He's gone on a egomaniacal rampage trying to rename words for his own use. It's like the French, authorities' worst nightmare.
That's right. You filed the language again, Corgan.
The first thing I thought of was with the whole distribution method, it's pretty much what's already happening with every piece of music that gets released nowadays, ever since the days of Napster, where everyone can download it for free, and the people who value it can go out and buy it if they choose. It's just that Billy is actually acknowledging that that's what happens, and kind of, saying, yep, that's okay with me. If you're going to download it for free, at least, download it for free from us, and it's legit. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and it's been long rumored that, this is the way that things should be in the future now that we have the internet and information is being shared and music is being shared, and this is the first really big experiment with it, I think. So I will be very curious to see what happens.
It's true.
What were your initial reactions?
Oh, thanks.
Did you first, was the title the first thing that struck you?
Well, I have to admit, I was sitting there, they were hyping this up like crazy on Twitter, the Smashing Pumpkins, Billy's employees who run the Twitter and the website, they were really hyping it up incredibly.
Twitter tracker.
And I thought, we should probably be on top of the story, so I was sitting there ready to cover it right away. And so, I have to admit, first thing I did, I saw the article, and just from a pure, we gotta get the story out, which, the first thing I did was, I just scanned it for the title, copied it, pasted it into Twitter, and hit send. So, I guess the title was the first thing, but, the second thing...
Is that Twitter hive mind at work?
I don't know. I got a couple retweets out of it, okay? So, you want to make fun of me, but yeah.
Was there a hashtag?
Anyway. So, okay, but the first big thought I had, and it's weird, but it actually occurred to me an hour before the announcement. It actually kind of occurred to me that this is what it was going to be about. I mean, at least the element of it being that he was going to release one song at a time. Not the title. Sorry.
I just had this in my mind, Teargarden.
Jason has finally made it into the Smashing Pumpkins internet matrix.
No, what I anticipated was that it was going to have something to do with the songs being released one after another. It just occurred to me because they've been hyping it up so much. This is going to be unprecedented, right? And I just thought, what can it be? But it just occurred to me that everything Billy's signaled and said about it kind of related to this idea that he's going to put out singles, quote unquote, right? And so that's kind of what I figured, that they were going to release the songs just in little batches or even one at a time. And Billy says one at a time. And to me, that's the thing that's unique. People are focusing on the free aspect and the 44 songs aspects, which I think are both newsworthy and a little wild. But I really think the bizarre thing that's going to be the most fascinating for me to try to get my brain around is how it's going to be processed by the culture releasing a 44-song album one song at a time. I don't really know who's tried to do that. And it's going to be strange, because think about how the music press operates. An album drops on a given day, they all review it, and the album gets rated, by all these people. It's a good album, it's a bad album. There's some sort of, not consensus necessarily, but you get kind of a temperature of how people feel about it, oh, everyone's raving about it, or a few people like it, but most people are kind of eh. You get that kind of immediate sense about an album, within a couple weeks of this definite date when the entire thing drops in your lap. Well, when is the holistic evaluation, pardon the phrase, when is the evaluation of this Teargarden thing as an album going to come? I mean, it's going to be very strange. There's going to be one song, apparently, going to come out, and we'll have that for a week or so, or 2 weeks maybe, and then there'll be another song, and maybe after 3 or 4 months there'll be a dozen or 16 songs, and then Billy's going to be okay, we're going on tour now, and they're going to tour, and then after they, maybe some songs will come out while they're on tour, and then maybe after they tour, more songs will come out, and, what happens, the first time a song comes out that's just a song? Because, the first song comes out, and it's going to be, I don't want to say calculated, but it's going to be carefully chosen to be some kind of impactful song, right?
Yeah.
The first single of an album, it will be a song that Billy thinks is really going to make some kind of impact. I don't know that he necessarily is going to pick the best song, whatever that would mean, but, he's going to pick, he might pick something with a hard driving riff that gets people's attention, that's and as people who read hipstersunited.com, a blog about the Smashing Pumpkins, know, there's some suggestion that the first single might in fact be a song called The Trip that was performed live on the Spirits in the Sky tour, which does in fact feature a very catchy hard rock guitar riff. So, that seems like a logical choice for first song to me. Is it a great song? I don't know. But it might be a great riff. Okay. But I just think it's going to be really interesting to see how people... 3 years down the line, what are people going to think about this album? how is that opinion going to be formed? That's a very... How are you going to sequence the album? You have the first 6 or 8 songs. What, is everyone going to be able to put them in random order? I don't think Billy's going to specify what order the first 6 songs go in. That doesn't make any sense.
This first one is song number 17. 17.
That's really kind of strange.
Maybe one of the songs will be called, Song 26. That will be the title of the song.
Right.
And it's released third.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, In Rainbows, was quote-unquote free for a little while. But it had a sequence. It was all there. And those are the things that are out the window with this album. And I really think that's the biggest unknown and the biggest question mark.
Yeah, will this be... This album won't qualify for best album of the aughts, this decade, and it won't qualify for best album of the teens. It really doesn't fit in either. It can't be the best album of 2009 or the best album of 2010. How will we put it into lists? How will we rank it with other albums?
I absolutely think this is an interesting question. I'm fascinated about how these music news websites and these critics are going to try to cover and evaluate it. I don't really have the answer.
I thought it was interesting that, Billy released albums traditionally for a while and kind of lamented the fact that there was this label process that he kind of had to be a part of, even if that's not what he wanted to do. And when the Smashing Pumpkins were broken up, this thing called iTunes started up, and you could release songs on the internet directly, and people could download just one song, and Billy's almost kind of bypassed that whole thing. So I know that we kind of talked about, now bands can just release songs one at a time on iTunes and release whatever they want, and they can release things on their own without a label and get paid directly through iTunes. And Billy's kind of bypassing that whole thing, so he only did that with one thing, and that was American Gothic. So he's already just bypassing that and saying, now that I'm independent, instead of releasing things myself and getting paid for it, I'm just going to release it myself for free. So he's definitely, I think, Jason, you posted the post child out there that quoted, I think it was MTV.com, saying, Billy's always been all about go big or go home, and this It's definitely the case here. That's definitely what he's doing. It's like he's saying, well, for the past 10 years, these other artists have been kind of nibbling around the edges of what you can do with kind of independent music releasing on the internet, and I'm just going to blow all that out of the water. Here's everything for free over the next, 2 to 3 years.
There's, I think this fits with the way Billy operates the band, in that this is, at least I think in the way the release is going to go, this is kind of unprecedented, and there's no real assurance that it's going to work well.
Yeah.
I don't see any definite reason to think, this is definitely going to make the album be well received or not. It's kind of an unknown. It's like you go out there and play the March Hare, and you're running around, you're dancing around the stage, and everyone's playing a percussion instrument in the whole band, and some of your fans are dancing, and Kelly Bergeron is out there standing, slack-jawed in horror, and you just don't know how things are going to be, received. So it's a big experiment.
Even amongst fans, even some of our commenters have said that, they kind of wish that, a group of songs was being released at once instead of just one, because, what if you don't like that one song? With an album, you get the album, and it's, you pick, over time, you pick your favorite songs when you first hear it, and you can listen to those songs, and other songs will grow on you over time, but that can't happen here. You get one song, and if you really like it, you could get sick of that song by the time the next song comes out, or you could not like that song at all.
Yeah, I love this. I'm going to, draw an example. So, okay, imagine Mellon Collie released this way, right? The first song that comes out is Bullet with Butterfly Wings. Yeah, Rat in a Cage! And then next week, Lily! What is this song? I don't really care, And then the third song is Mellon Collie Infinite Sadness. It's a piano instrumental. What the fuck?
Make up your mind, Billy.
I think we will have to confront things like that.
I think it's also, it's interesting that you bring it up like that, because I feel like doing something like this and kind of bucking any trend or current form of logic about how you're supposed to do things with a record release really places the emphasis, hopefully, back on the music. Because if, I think it's going to desensitize sort of the day-to-day drama of how indie rock publications cover the Smashing Pumpkins, because what are they going to do? Find 44 new ways to fucking throw them against a wall and, say, oh, their career is totally dead, even though they've released 44 songs for free on the internet that you might like? I think that it just sort of almost is a bold-faced challenge to, otherwise detractors to try and come forward against the productivity, how voluminous Billy Corgan's output is, first of all. Yeah. And secondly, you can't criticize a man's record 44 times without looking like you're a jerk. So
you can't,
by trying to...
You won't be able to prejudge it and dismiss it so easily.
Right.
I mean, how can like you said, you can't make 44 snarky, dismissive comments in a row.
Right. It makes you look pretty retarded.
Well,
watch out, they may take that as a challenge.
Here's the thing. They can't do it simply because, they perceive themselves as journalists, and, the highest virtue in the world of journalism is unbiasedness, which is a bullshit ideal, but we'll kind of play to Billy's benefit because they won't trash 44 songs in a row. They just won't. There will be some redeeming value seen in this album, and therefore it'll probably earn, if anyone does bother to write an album review after it's all out, which I don't know if anyone will, but well, someone will. It's the internet. Everyone does everything, or someone does everything.
Someone does something. Yeah.
But, it'll probably be somewhat respectful. Whereas Zeitgeist, you can probably be like, there are only 4 good songs out of 12. It sucks.
Right. Well, and it effectually brings the dialogue back to the music as opposed to anything surrounding it, because the serial nature of the releases themselves, I think. So in that respect, I think what they're doing is really interesting in kind of taking control of the editorial perspective, so to speak. Plus, sorry, go ahead.
Agree. Oh, I'm just going to say I totally agree, because one thing I wanted to do, but we don't have enough of a voice or enough power as a Smashing Pumpkins fan blog. We're readily dismissed by these neutral journalists who write about all kinds of music. We couldn't write about all kinds of music if we wanted to.
We just don't want to.
Well, we don't have that as our professional aspiration.
Yeah.
And so since we don't, we're free to just specialize. And, I was teasing you the other day, Jill. I said, Jill, judging from your last FM listening statistics, you should be writing a Hood Internet fan blog and not a Smashing Pumpkins fan blog. So clearly we have other interests and we have it in ourselves to write about them if we wanted to, but it just doesn't seem, I don't know, it hasn't worked out that way. But the point is that during that last tour, that I've complained repeatedly, or I guess 2 tours now. The last 2 tours that have kind of been ignored or dismissed or attacked by these 30-ish music journalists. That's exactly what I wanted to do. Was I wanted to have some. I wanted to. We lacked the power, but I wanted to put in front of them okay, here is a song, right, from this tour. I want you to say that it sucks. I want you to put this recording of Gossamer or the March Hare or this performance of Soma or whatever on your website, and I want you to tell your readers it's crap. I want to see you do that, because that they didn't. They never put any record. When Stereogum actually put some music from the tour on their website, it was a couple months after the tour because it was broadcast on the Chris Isaak television program, because of course Stereogum couldn't get someone who'd gone to the Smashing Pumpkins tour because that would be way too much work to find someone who went, But when they were actually confronted with the music on television, shockingly, they liked it. They wrote about how it would make a swell iTunes EP or suite or something. But, that's what I wanted to see during the tour. I want to be like, oh, this tour is so bad. Well, how about some of the music? Does it suck? I want to at least see you say so.
Right.
I wanted them on record. Yes, Gossamer sucks. That 16-minute piece of music is crap. And I think you're absolutely right, Jill. This release method puts them on the spot. They have to do that. They don't have to acknowledge the new songs at all. But if they acknowledge them, they pretty much do have to be like, yeah, we listened to that song and it sucks, right?
Well, let's get this question over with, because it has to be asked at some point. It seems like most of the spirits in the sky have been invited to Chicago to record with Billy, but nowhere to be seen are Jeff Schroeder and Ginger Pooley. Now, Ginger's absence is easily explained by her pregnancy, but what about Jeff? And Billy recently made a point to mention that he's still a member of the Smashing Pumpkins, so Jason, why do you think Jeff isn't in the studio with him?
Yeah, because Jeff plays guitar. Jeff plays guitar a lot like Billy plays guitar. And, Billy's talked about how he's got that ability where he can just knock out the track the way it's supposed to be in pretty short order, right? I mean, this was the story of recording Siamese Dream, that, James or Darcy maybe could have dicked around with their parts for, a week and got them right, or I could have got it in 1 or 2 takes, And that's what Flood said, too, right? Or not Flood, Butch Vig, sorry.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. I mean, Billy plays guitar. He doesn't need Jeff to play guitar. So what's fascinating, though, is I think of the Zeitgeist thing where Billy made it clear to everyone that he only needed him and a drummer to make a Smashing Pumpkins album. He talked about this. It's like, I played the bass parts. I played all the guitar parts. I mean, he didn't say it like that, But, that message got out. That was clear about Zeitgeist, right? And he's basically, he's established this band, but, now Jimmy's even gone. And it's really, he's already taken the hit from the public and from the fans in terms of, the Smashing Pumpkins are pretty much just Billy, right? He's taken that hit. He's established himself as the studio whiz who can play the guitar and the bass and all this. And what does he do right now? He brings in Mark Tulin to play bass in the studio on Smashing Pumpkins recordings. It's remarkable. It's he's now totally cleared the path to where no one would even raise an eyebrow that Billy Corgan played the bass on the next Pumpkins album, and he's not doing it. Right? He brought somebody in to play bass. That, to me, is, mind-blowing. And it's not mind-blowing, but it's surprising. 3 months ago, I think we would have assumed that Billy and Mike Byrne, or whoever the new drummer was going to be, were going to make the album together just like Zeitgeist, right? And we would have said, of course Jeff's not going to be involved because Billy's just going to play the guitar, right? But we would have thought Billy was going to play the bass, too, and he's not playing the bass. So I guess that does kind of reintroduce your question, though, Chris, right? Because, if 3 months ago we were going to assume that Jeff wasn't going to play guitar, but we probably also would have assumed Ginger wasn't going to play bass. And Ginger's not playing bass, but Mark Tulin is playing bass, possibly because Ginger's pregnant, possibly because Billy enjoys Mark Tulin's smooth bass lines. So that kind of does bring back in the question, well, clearly could use another musician like Jeff to play some guitar, but I still think the ultimate reason is Billy is a pretty good guitar player.
And I think lending credence to that is, if anyone listened to the Dave Navarro radio show last week, I mean, Dave Navarro practically begged Billy to be part of the recording process, and the fact that he's not out there, at least not yet, I mean, that would also be his role, would be as the virtuoso guitarist. And
I thought Dave would make sucking sounds.
If anyone's hands needed to be licked during the recording process, Dave could probably hook them up. But I think that's probably why Dave's not out there, at least not yet, is that Billy's got the guitar virtuoso parts pretty well in hand. But this announcement that we got this week, or last week I should say, it's been just the latest in a series of messages by a new, more open Billy on SP.com. Starting with the Spirits shows, Billy's been exceedingly clear in his recent messages about what his plans and intentions are, even to the point of clarifying statements made in an interview that previously would have gone uncorrected and would have resulted in months of misreporting, like the "no more albums" comments that were taken up ad nauseum for over a year. Jill, do you think this new openness means to silence critics or bring the press back to his corner? I mean, has Billy just gotten tired of his quotes being taken out of context, or does he have some sort of greater marketing purpose or something with new open Billy?
I think that, do you think that him being open about things is a new phenomenon? I mean, is that kind of what you're saying? Because I think he's been open in the past, but perhaps not very upbeat.
I think he's making it a point to be more clear, like correcting that he did an interview with another website whose name escapes me right now, and he made some sort of comment about the time frame for when these 44 songs were going to get released, and I don't know if they misquoted him or somehow it wasn't clear. And
it was Paste Magazine, and
yeah.
I'm almost sure those were just weird assumptions that they made that didn't come out of anything.
But he did make it a point to correct it on SmashingPumpkins.com, and
right.
They went ahead after that and corrected their story, which I've never seen him do before.
Well, I mean, I think there's a difference between sort of him. I think that we're seeing a new, more open Billy about a lot of things right now, but I'm not sure that it's a new phenomenon. Like, I think he goes through phases or sort of swings between the more opaque and more mysterious side of his personality or his relationship with the media, and then, kind of swings back towards being really open and honest and very forthcoming about things. I would imagine that this new openness also has something to do with the launch of his new website, because he's probably feeling a bit like revealing himself in these other arenas is perhaps affecting how he communicates his other, business life. I mean, that's just a sort of initial feeling that I have gotten from things. But I do think, to some extent, it is making things a little bit more efficient with the press, perhaps. And whatever he's doing, the news of the new album and so forth, especially with it being free, I think the openness of the press release surrounding the new music has really worked in their favor, like Jason said earlier, regarding all of the positive feedback they've gotten. So I don't know that, I think that Corgan has a penchant for enjoying a little mystery at his fans' expense once in a while. I mean, to put it kind of mildly and playfully, I guess. But he just doesn't. He seems to be more focused on really producing right now, whether it be with his new blog or with this huge bulk of songs that he's promised to release. So I think he gains a lot of focus from being open like this.
I wonder how much of it is kind of in response to what happened earlier in the summer with the whole lunch. So Billy took a lot of flack for what was perceived as him being cheap and making a fan who won a charity auction buy him lunch.
Lunch. Lunch, yeah.
I don't know.
That was a moment.
Clearly he had that blog post pretty soon after where he was pretty upset about that. I'm wondering if he's trying to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again, at least not that he can control.
Well, if anything, from his personal interests with the Everything From Here to There blog, I think that he's all too cognizant of how easily his words can be taken out of context. So now that he's sort of diversified into personal blog plus musical enterprise plus maybe future, memoir or biography, it seems like he's just trying to make all of his sort of artistic pursuits kind of leveling the playing field in terms of what he's bringing to the table for everyone to consume. Does that make any sense? I feel like he's adding consistency to how he communicates because he has all of these different enterprises going on.
Yeah.
And that seems to me that's like the serial sign of an overcommitter. You're trying to get everyone on the same page and remind everybody, even if they've heard it 4 or 5 times, what you're trying to do and what all of your current projects are. And I'm not suggesting that's what he's doing here. I'm just saying there's a certain amount of efficiency you have to come to the table with. Who knows?
Well, Radiohead's In Rainbows will be the obvious comparison in terms of distribution for this album, despite what I think is a pretty huge difference. I mean, In Rainbows was never free for a few months, downloaders were able to decide how much they wanted to pay for it, and once the album was released in stores, it no longer was available for download. But eventually it sold 3 million copies once it stopped being free and went on sale. But it sounds like the Teargarden EPs, if not the box set at the end of the road, will be limited edition items and won't even have a chance to approach those numbers. So I'm just wondering how we're going to be able to assess how successful this project is as it goes along. And how will Billy, who, I mean, it seems like, he's giving away all this stuff for free. It seems like he's not motivated by money here, but he still does need to break even somehow. How is Billy going to assess whether he's being successful with this project? Is it going to be downloads? Like, oh, well, this song got 1 million downloads and this song got 500,000 downloads. So clearly what I'm doing is successful. I mean, Jason, what do you think?
Well, I absolutely think they'll watch the download statistics pretty closely. One thing that comes to mind is that they expect to go on tour before the album is done. And I think Billy has shown in the past that it's pretty easy for him to get a sense from the stage of whether the fans know the songs, like the songs, want to hear the songs, wish they were somewhere else, are going to get a beer, And I think the tour is probably going to be a time when he probably forms a good bit of his opinion about how successful he's been. I think both those components I think will come into play, the numbers and also just the reaction he gets on the road.
Yeah, I think the tour thing is interesting because we kind of saw it with Machina 2, where when Billy released Machina 2 for free and sent it out to some folks on the internet, he said, hey, release this, get this out really quickly, I'm going to be playing these songs in Europe, which ended up being the final European tour of the first incarnation of the Smashing Pumpkins. And I think that it's going to be kind of similar in this case, so he's releasing, I'm going to guess, like you said, he's going to release about 12 to 16 songs before he starts touring them. And at this point, they're out there for free. There's no reason why everybody in the audience won't be able to have heard every new song in advance. And that, I think he will be able to get a sense of which are the better songs and which ones have gotten a good reaction from the crowd. And I don't, it's a question of what whether that will affect him in the future. So this is kind of the first experiment that anyone, as far as I know, has done with, releasing the album one song at a time. Will that affect him with recording or deciding which song to release next? So let's say he does release The Trip first and it doesn't get a lot of downloads, or he doesn't think that it was very well received. Will he release a slower song or when he's more confident in next? I mean, we didn't really talk about this at all, but there was I forget who actually said it. I should probably look on hipstersunited.com, but there was the notion that the songs that were played during the Spirits in the Sky shows were the kind of the B songs. They weren't the best material that Billy knew was going to be successful. So I wonder if that will kind of guide how he releases his songs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, he's going to have a limited ability to react because he's got to have recorded this song, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like his plan is to go in and work on a few songs at a time, and then from what he said, release them one at a time. So right now they said they were working on like 4 songs or something, and then those songs will come out one at a time. So you raise good questions. I don't know if they're answers. Except the general answer is obviously that if it doesn't go well at the start, Billy will just become more and more desperate to succeed. And every song will become an increasingly cloying in its demands for our attention. Oh, please like me. I'm good. And it's just going to end up like Weezer. I'm sorry, I'm kidding. Really joke. I hope no one takes that seriously. It's hard to make jokes on the internet. People don't get it.
It's certainly, I mean, the way that Billy's chosen to do this, it certainly provides him the opportunity to sort of change his mind, at least somewhat, at some point in time in the middle of the album, which no one, he's never had the chance to do that before, and no real artist who's since this is the first time anybody's ever really done anything like this. I mean, that's really untrodden ground in terms of anybody has ever had the chance to sort of, once you've started to release an album, to change what you're doing depending on how it's received by the public. So,
and Billy said that's kind of what he wants.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see. Of course, we won't see what he throws out. Unfortunately, maybe he'll talk about it in blog postings or interviews at some point in time in terms of how how touring and affected what the final product can end up being. But
yeah, the fact that we are talking about this at all shows that the way in which he's distributing this album is throwing in our face some of what it is to be an artist. Because anytime you put something out, people have this reaction to it, and then you've got to react to the reaction, right? And it's like, people have this view of artistry as like, you do it in total isolation up on a mountaintop, right? And like, where you're not influenced by the outside world, and then you present your thing, and people react, but you're not supposed to listen to that. You're supposed to go back into your cave and like come out with your art piece again, right? And obviously that's false, but it's just, I mean, think about what Billy's got to go through. He puts out this song, and then like everyone's like, yeah, it sucked, and then he puts out another, yeah, it was good, it was okay, and then he's going to go back and record 4 songs right after that, And how do you, like, psychologically, like, put yourself in his shoes? How do you deal with, like, well, I believe in this next song, everyone's saying this, and, like, how do you, like, keep it within parameters to where you're comfortable with how you're reacting to it? You know what I mean? That you feel like, oh, I'm not overreacting, I'm not underreacting, I'm not acting like it's not happening, but it's not really changing me, right. And, like, to where you feel, like, still confident. I mean, that's got to be really difficult.
I mean, Billy's even said, I think, that he's planning on reacting in some way, because he said that one of his goals for this, and one of the reasons he's doing it, is he didn't like the process of, well, we're going into the studio for 2 to 3 years to record this album, and we don't know what anyone's reaction is going to be, and then we release it, and people say it sucks. And It's like, they have no idea what people are going to say, because they've been holed up in the studio for 2 to 3 years. So, I mean, he clearly is anticipating having some sort of, at the reaction, having some sort of guidance on what he does. But I think it will be interesting to see how much that does come into play. But yeah, I did think this was pretty interesting. They chose so-so songs to play on the Spirits tour.
I couldn't believe that they came out and said that. I mean, I can believe it. But to me, that was just like, holy crap, who does that? I mean, who's like, okay, we just toured on some of our new material, but it was like the B new material, and, we're hoping to bring it along, but you'll see the real stuff later. And most bands don't even have, like, enough songs to, like, pull out a set.
At least he didn't say this before the tour. Hey, everybody who's gonna buy tickets, we're gonna be playing the so-so songs on this tour.
Yeah, it's knock your socks off or anything. We're just sticking around.
As someone who went, though, you kind of feel like, I don't want to say offended, but like everyone was like, yeah, that was great. And then to have him come out and be like, nah, it wasn't that great.
And I knew it wasn't going to be that great.
Yeah, you kind of, I mean, I actually, I don't personally feel that I thought it was great. I just took it for what it was, but I know a lot of people were really excited. I mean, the general vibe was really, really positive. So to have Billy come out and be like, oh, it was okay. I just wonder if people feel. I mean, obviously, some people's like reactions like, "Wow, the new songs are going to be even better," That's just, the whole thing I just felt hilarious.
What a buzzkill, Billy! What a buzzkill!
Oh, what a cynic, Chris! What a cynic!
I think it'll be really interesting also once tours start up. Because, I mean, it's been long argued, bands don't make any money off album sales, they make the big bucks on touring. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of with the 20th anniversary tour, one of the bigger complaints was, they're playing songs that people have never heard before, songs like the March Hare and things like that. So here he's playing these songs that, I mean, there's still a chance people won't have heard all of them, but they will have at least had the opportunity to hear them all. So I guess Billy's putting his money where his mouth is, or not his mouth, I guess, but the general consensus his mouth is, and see if that's really the case. Is he going to get stellar reviews now because the crowd reception will be better? Maybe that'll sell more tickets down the road.
Don't you think, though, if he goes out after he's released 12 or 16, whatever, Teargarden songs, we're just making that up. That number doesn't come from anywhere, it's just us making something up.
Yeah.
But, if he goes out at that point to tour, don't you think 6 or 8 of the songs on the set list will be Teargarden songs that haven't been released yet? And won't we hear the same round of complaints?
Yeah, or it could be songs that, like leftovers that never got released, like Oh Whata, or Song for a Son hopefully will be on Teargarden, but I guess there's always the possibility it won't.
I love it. Chris is like, Oh Whata's not coming out. So, we all know it.
I'm just preparing myself to be disappointed if Song for a Son isn't released. At least we have it live. I got to see it in person.
But then again, I mean, not to beat a dead horse here, but doesn't that steer the discussion back towards music? Like, even if you don't, so let's say that you're a Fairweather fan who's kind of casually harbored an interest for the Smashing Pumpkins. And oh great, they're releasing their music for free. So let's say I like half of the 12 songs that, they release before they go out on tour, half of them enough to go plunk down more money for a show. There, if I'm exposed to an even greater number of songs above and beyond, like the 44 that will be released, and I'm exposed to the actual B-sides of the 44 album song, which starts to get preposterous at a certain point in terms of output. I mean, don't we start playing this like bizarro numbers game where like the more diverse songs the band starts putting out, the more likely they are to attract this crazy wide base of fans that, I don't know. I mean, it's like Jason was talking about earlier with the concept of releasing Mellon Collie one at a time. Like, that would just be, and I even think that Mellon Collie is more cohesive as an album, even above and beyond what they've been playing recently on their live tours. Like, I feel like this becomes some crazy critics numbers game at some point.
Are you trying to say that, like, some just what the crowd that goes to a concert is going to be interested in hearing is going to be really wildly
different?
Yeah, like, so yeah. I'm going to go and I'm going to be interested in, like, hearing 12 songs. And you're going to go, and your 12 songs are just not going to be the ones I'm interested in hearing.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, I think that's the story of their career.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But doesn't this intensify it? But again, it's steering, like, I think this intensifies that sort of trajectory that they've had, especially for the last few years, or the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But again, it's like completely turning the dialogue back to the music. Because then the discussion becomes, well, I like these kinds of songs that the Smashing Pumpkins are doing and not so much these other kinds of songs, or vice versa. I think it's just an interesting, vis-a-vis how they're going to take this on the road is going to be a really interesting drama to unfold in the press.
Well, I would say,
I think it'll be varied.
I mean, I don't want to be a downer like Chris, but I would. I mean, we're what you and I are kind of saying is the next tour is likely to be like the last tour, and I think we already have an example of the last tour with regard to what you're talking about, them playing some new songs that people weren't interested in hearing, and I think the to the extent that there were press outlets that addressed the fact that they were playing these songs. It was mostly like, nobody wants to hear Smashing Pumpkins play new songs, and it was just noise. That's the famous Kelly Bergeron quote, right? So, and she's now been mentioned on 2 straight podcasts. Probably because we just recorded the other one. But
pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Well, that's really stuck with me, possibly because it was the most outrageous instance of the music actually being addressed and being completely written off. Mm-hmm. And it really drove home to me the extent to which, and this is kind of in Kelly's defense, I think when people hear music for the first time, they perceive it as noise. Dave Maher, when he was writing for Pitchfork, summarizing other people's reviews of that tour, he said the band was meandering into formless noise jams, right? So his interpretation of these other reviews was that the band was playing formless noise, which I can assure everyone listening to this is an error. What it actually was, those were new songs.
Maybe he had the equipment from Egypt that we haven't discovered yet.
No, but like what that actually was, those were new songs, or they were covers, but the songs were played the exact same way every night. They had melodies, they had definite chords, definite rhythms, definite structures that were the same again and again. They were not formless in any sense, and they were not noise. They probably, though, came off that way to someone hearing them for the first time because you just can't get your brain around a moderately complicated composition that quickly. You know, the first listen or two or three or 10 even just kind of like wash over you. You know, especially when you're standing there in a crowd of thousands of people and it's being blasted at you in these speakers, and you're also being distracted by a light show and whatever. You know, it just seems like it's noise. It's not, though. And so I'm just saying, Jill, I know this is unfortunate and not optimistic, but I think if they play a bunch of songs that people don't know or don't want to hear, that'll be the reaction, that they played songs no one wanted to hear and they were just noise.
But don't you think the sort of fundamental mentality of singles releasing, whether or not they're as part of an album or not, kind of adds excitement to at least the crowd?
For us.
And their response? Well, no, I mean, I'm saying, okay, so let's take, let's look at the last, 9 months or so of, maybe the last year of professional output of the Smashing Pumpkins. And we see songs like Super Christ, we see songs like Feel Our Love, Full, Feel Our Love, whatever. We see some of these songs that have been released to a flurry of attention all at one time. And if anything, they're at least memorable, right? So at least you know what the riff to Feel Our Love is supposed to sound like, because it was the only thing in the news about the band for a while there. I mean, yes.
I don't remember how the riff sounds. I can just see that yellow car.
Exactly.
On its epic lap.
Epic lap, yes.
I mean, despite the sort of noise around the political aspirations or the economic / commercial aspirations of a move like that, the release of single after single, which we have seen somewhat in the last year or so, kind of generates individual song buzz. And I'm wondering if that's not going to happen with the new release structure, because I think that actually generates a bit more excitement. I mean, like, I think about the last time I saw the Pumpkins on tour, and they were playing that whacked out cover of The Beginning is the End is the Beginning. And people were really interested in that because it was like a buzz that was in contemporary culture. And maybe the general public's awareness of this sort of single release structure is not going to be as high as I kind of esteem it to be, or estimate that it will become. But I feel like when the attention is sort of refocused on each individual song as it comes out, it creates more of a frenetic feel about a concert experience, at least in my experience in the last couple of years. People's attention, I mean, and the fundamental problem underlying this is that people's attention span is just shot these days.
What were you saying, Jill? I'm sorry, I was looking at Twitter.
Exactly. Thank you for illustrating my point perfectly.
I guess the only real comparison point we could make was those European Machina 2 dates, or that European tour after Machina 2 was released. And even then, it's still not exactly the same, like you were saying, Jill. It wasn't singles getting released. It was free songs released that had never been released before. But I do wonder whether if they had just gone out there and started playing those songs on the tour without having released Machina 2 first, if the reaction would have been drastically different. I'm sure it probably would have.
Mm-hmm.
Although not being there, I can't really speak to what the reaction to them was.
I'm going to go watch the epic lap after we finish this podcast.
Come on and feel the love, dude.
Well, thanks for joining us this week. It seems like we're going to need another few weeks off after having 2 shows in 1 week, but we'll see what we can do as far as another podcast coming up soon in the next couple of weeks. Our closing song is the likely choice for the first Teargarden single, The Trip, from Visalia, California, on August 26, 2009. Good night, everybody. podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Smashing Pumpkins, Virgin Records, or Warner Brothers Reprise Records. All opinions offered by panelists or guests of the Hipsters United podcast are their own and do not represent the opinions of the Smashing Pumpkins. All audio during the show is licensed for non-profit use per the terms and conditions on the Live Music Archive at archive.org. Intro music is from the Machina 2 album, released for free download on the internet by the Smashing Pumpkins in September of 2000.